All right. All right. Ready to dive deep today.
Always ready for a deep dive.
Awesome. Let's take a look at Broadcom.
This sounds good.
We've got their SEC Form 8K
Okay.
and a press release,
Right.
both about their performance in Q4
Uh-huh.
and the full fiscal year 2024.
2024. Yeah.
Now Broadcom's a big player.
Right.
They design and they supply everything from
Yeah.
semiconductors to infrastructure software.
Yeah. A wide range.
Wide range, huge.
Yeah.
So let's see how they wrapped up the year.
Definitely. A company to keep an eye on for sure. They're all over the tech world. Impressive, really.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. And they didn't disappoint
Okay.
when it came to their revenue.
Okay. Good.
Broadcom achieved a record-breaking 44% growth year over year,
Wow.
ending the year with a whopping $51.6 billion.
That's huge.
$51.6 billion.
Yeah.
That kind of growth for a company their size
Yeah.
is pretty remarkable.
Pretty remarkable. It is. Points to some serious, I don't know, wins strategically, for sure. I'm interested to see what fueled it, you know?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Well, a significant portion of it came from their infrastructure software sector,
Okay.
which brought in $21.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
That's largely thanks to their successful integration of VMware,
Oh, okay.
which they acquired earlier this year.
Right. Yeah. That was a big move. It seems like it's paid off though. It's hard to integrate a company that big.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But they also had a stellar year in their semiconductor solutions segment,
Oh, interesting.
hitting a record $30.1 billion in revenue.
Wow.
And get this, $12.2 billion of that came from AI
Whoa.
alone,
That's a lot.
a 220% increase from last year.
That's not just riding the wave. It's like they're building a surfboard or something, right?
Right.
I mean, they're really doing something right there.
Incredible. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think is behind that kind of success? What do you think?
Well, it tells me they're doing more than just like, supplying the chips. I mean, they're probably very much integrated into the AI development world, the ecosystem.
Mm.
Yeah, they've got these things, they're called AI XPUs,
Okay.
which are specialized processors
Okay.
that are designed for, AI calculations, really intense calculations. Think of them as the brains behind all the machine learning.
So they're providing like the specialized hardware.
The hardware.
Okay.
Yeah.
But are they also involved on like the infrastructure side, like the networking?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely they are. They're also supplying like the high-speed networking, that
Yeah.
connects all these powerful AI systems together. It's like the combination of, the specialized hardware and this robust infrastructure that's putting them ahead.
That makes sense. So
Yeah.
they're providing like the picks and shovels and the mine shafts and this AI gold rush.
Exactly, yeah. That's smart.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Okay, so revenue's impressive.
Yeah.
But what about the bottom line?
Right.
Let's talk about profitability and cash flow.
Okay.
That's what really shows us their financial health.
Yeah, that's where the rubber meets the road. Yeah. Strong cash flow, it's crucial for any company, especially for one that wants to grow and, make strategic moves.
Right. Well, on that front,
Okay.
they're doing exceptionally well. Their adjusted EBITDA, which is a measure of their overall profitability,
Yeah.
reached a record $31.9 billion,
Wow.
a 37% increase. And their free cash flow, excluding restructuring, was a strong $21.9 billion.
Now those are healthy numbers. That cash flow, that gives them a lot of flexibility to do things like, invest in research and development, do acquisitions like VMware, or reward their shareholders with dividends. It's a sign of a company that's managing their finances well,
And speaking of rewarding shareholders,
Right.
Broadcom just announced an 11% increase in their quarterly dividend, bringing it to $0.59 per share.
Nice. That's great news for investors. Yeah. This is their 14th consecutive annual dividend increase,
Wow.
since 2011. So that shows, they're committed to returning value to their shareholders. With this increase, they're projecting an annual dividend of $2.36 per share.
Now, for someone who might, not be familiar with all the financial lingo,
Okay.
can you break down what adjusted EBITDA and free cash flow really mean and why our listeners should care about these things?
Sure, yeah. Adjusted EBITDA, that gives us a picture of the core profitability of the business, stripping away, all the one-time expenses and unusual expenses that kind of distort the picture.
Hmm.
It's a way to see how well the core business is doing. Free cash flow, on the other hand, is the cash. It's the cash the company has left over after paying for operations and investments. It shows how much money they have to do things like, pay dividends, buy back stock, or even make acquisitions. So if you're a shareholder, you want to see strong free cash flow. It's a good sign. It's the company. It has options.
And they can
Yeah.
and they can reward investors.
Okay, that makes sense. So strong cash flow and generous dividends. That's good indicators for investors.
Yeah.
But what about the future? What's Broadcom's outlook for the first quarter of fiscal year 2025? Well, they're projecting revenue of about $14.6 billion, which would be, another big jump, a 22% increase year over year. And they're expecting their adjusted EBITDA margin to hold steady at around 66%.
That's ambitious, but I mean, given their recent performance
Yeah.
and the continued demand for
Yeah.
their products, it seems achievable. What are your thoughts on that projected EBITDA margin?
Well, I mean, that's a really healthy margin. I think it suggests that they're keeping their costs under control, and that they have a good handle on their pricing strategy. It's a sign that they're operating efficiently, that they're managing their finances well strategically, even as they keep growing.
Yeah, they seem to be firing on all cylinders. Their fourth quarter revenue breakdown also reveals an interesting trend. Semiconductor Solutions brought in $8.23 billion, accounting for 59% of total revenue, while infrastructure software contributed $5.824 billion, or 41%.
Yeah, that's an important detail. That mix that's been changing, especially after the VMware acquisition.
Right.
It'll be interesting, I think, to see how this balance,
Sure.
changes in the coming years, especially as AI, continues to change the whole tech world.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, there's one more important thing to mention, I think. They did a 10-for-1 stock split back on July 12th, 2024.
Ah, yes, the stock split. That could be a little confusing for some people.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that means for our listener? How it affects all these numbers we're looking at?
Sure. A stock split basically divides existing shares into multiple shares.
Okay.
So in this case, each share was split into 10.
Okay.
This makes the price per share lower, and that makes it more accessible.
Yeah.
For a lot of investors. However, the overall value of your investment that stays the same. So the stock split does affect, these per share figures that we've been talking about. So it's important to remember that when you're comparing numbers from, different times.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always good to have that context when you're looking at all this, all this data.
Absolutely. It's all about understanding,
Yeah.
the full picture,
Right.
the whole story.
Yeah. So we've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
from record-breaking revenue to their AI strategy and those those healthy numbers.
Right.
What are your biggest takeaways from all of this? What do you think?
Well, I think what really stands out to me is how, how nimble Broadcom is, how they're able to adapt to these major trends in tech and not just adapt, but really capitalize on them. They've made these smart acquisitions,
Yeah.
invested heavily in key areas like AI, and they've really maintained this strong financial foundation.
I agree. Yeah. It's like they have this almost like a knack for knowing where the puck's going to be, to borrow a hockey analogy.
Yeah.
And they're already there. when it arrives.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. They're ahead of the game, and their commitment to returning value to their shareholders through these consistent dividend increases, it shows that they're not just focused on growth, but also on, sharing their success, with their
Right,
investors.
right. They seem to be striking this balance between ambition and stability,
Yeah, yeah,
which is a good recipe for long-term success, right?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But going back to their AI dominance, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not a one-horse race.
Oh no, no, not at all. I mean, they're up against some pretty tough
Yeah,
competitors.
yeah.
Like who are some of their biggest competitors in the AI space?
Well, you've got the giants, right? You got Google, you got Microsoft, you got NVIDIA, you
Oh,
know, all vying for the top spot.
yeah.
It's a really competitive market.
So what do you think sets Broadcom apart in such a crowded field?
I think it's their focus on providing this comprehensive solution.
Mhm.
They're not just developing these really advanced,
Yeah.
AI processors. They're also making sure that those processors have the infrastructure, the networking,
Yeah.
all that to really function at their peak. It's that integrated approach. I think it's understanding that whole ecosystem. That's what gives them the edge.
So they're not just like selling ingredients.
Right.
They're selling the whole cake. The whole cake, yeah. And that's what's attractive to companies that are looking to implement, AI solutions, right? They don't want to have to piece together,
Yeah.
all these different things. They want a partner,
Right.
that can provide this kind of seamless, powerful solution, and that's what Broadcom is doing.
It's interesting, you know, you mentioned partnerships.
Yeah,
I mean, they've also been working with various companies
right.
to to expand their reach, their expertise.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's another smart move. They've partnered with companies like Tesla and Apple to develop custom chips. For
Yeah.
for their specific needs. This allows them to, you know, tap into new markets, and really leverage their expertise.
Yeah.
Across different industries.
But so they're not just building for the AI market in general. They're
Mm-mm.
they're tailoring these solutions for
Yeah.
for specific players,
Yeah. Right.
which kind of you know further strengthens their position.
Exactly. It's a win-win,
Yeah.
for everybody. Broadcom gets access to new markets, new revenue. Um, their partners, they benefit
Yeah.
from having these customized solutions, that give them an edge.
I think this also ties back to what we talked about earlier about their revenue mix.
Uh-huh.
Shifting between semiconductors and software
Right.
as they integrate, VMware, more fully and,
Yeah.
and continue these partnerships.
Yeah.
We might see that balance,
Yeah. Yeah.
shift even further.
It'll be really fascinating to see how that develops, especially as the line between hardware and software just it keeps getting blurrier and blurrier. Broadcom seems to be positioning themselves right at at the intersection of those two worlds,
Hmm.
which could be a really powerful place to be.
It's clear that Broadcom, they're not content to just rest on their laurels.
Yeah, they're not sitting still. No.
They're constantly innovating, looking for ways to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah. They've shown that they're not afraid to make big moves, whether it's through acquisitions or partnerships or investing in these new technologies. They're thinking long term,
Yeah.
and they're doing it smartly.
And I think that's what makes them so interesting to follow. They're like a microcosm of the dynamism and the rapid change that we're seeing in the whole tech world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. They're definitely a company to watch. Not just for, how their stock is doing, but for the role that they're playing in shaping the future of technology,
Yeah. Right, right. Okay, so we've established that, Broadcom's in a really strong position.
Yeah.
But let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
What are some of the potential, challenges or risks they might run into in the future?
That's a great question. Um, I think, one potential challenge is just the inherent volatility of the tech industry.
Yeah.
The landscape can change, really quickly.
Right.
And new technologies, they come up all the time.
Hmm.
So Broadcom's going to have to, stay agile, stay adaptable to stay ahead of the game.
So they can't afford to get complacent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Another potential risk is, regulatory scrutiny.
Mm.
As they grow, as they get bigger, as they acquire more companies,
Mm. So,
they're gonna face more scrutiny from antitrust regulators,
so, mm.
who are concerned about, monopolies and too much dominance in the market.
That's a valid point. Yeah, especially with the recent VMware acquisition.
Exactly. Yeah. So navigating those regulatory those regulatory hurdles, that's going to be really important for them to, continue to succeed.
Yeah.
And then of course, there's always the risk of economic downturns
Yeah.
or global events, geopolitical things
Right.
that could impact their business. We saw that with the chip shortage,
Yeah. Yeah.
a few years ago. Just, how vulnerable even these really big tech companies are to these
Yeah.
external forces.
Right. Right. It showed that even the best laid plans can get disrupted.
Exactly. Yeah. But overall, I mean, Broadcom seems to be in a really, really strong position.
Yeah.
They've got a solid track record. They have a clear vision, for the future, and they're willing to adapt, to
Yeah.
to evolve.
I agree. Yeah. But here's a question for you, and maybe something for our listener to think about too.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about Broadcom's success in AI and their focus on building this infrastructure
Yeah.
for this really transformative technology. But
Yeah.
but what does that actually mean for the average person?
Yeah. Yeah.
How is their work going to impact our daily lives, our everyday lives?
Yeah. That's a great question to think about as we wrap up this deep dive into Broadcom.
Yeah, yeah. It's easy to get caught up in the numbers,
Yeah.
the business side,
Right.
but ultimately, you know, technology. It's all about how it affects people.
Absolutely. And when we talk about Broadcom's influence, I mean it's everywhere. It's kind of woven into the fabric of our digital lives, even if, we don't see their name on everything we use.
Right. Can you give our listener
Yeah.
some concrete examples?
Sure. I mean, think about, your smartphone. It's probably got a bunch of Broadcom chips in it, enabling, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, all those things that we just expect to work.
So even if we don't see the Broadcom logo,
Yeah.
their tech is making those experiences possible.
Exactly, yeah. And then there's the bigger picture, like data centers, those huge server farms that power the cloud, the internet, social media, all that. They rely heavily on Broadcom's networking and storage solutions, to move all that data around, to manage it all. I mean, it's a huge amount of data.
It's mind-boggling when you think about all that data, flowing through systems built with Broadcom tech.
Yeah. And then you've got, AI, which is where it gets really, really interesting. We talked about their AI XPUs, those specialized processors. Well, those are, they're being used in all sorts of things. Everything from self-driving cars to, medical imaging devices that can, detect cancer earlier, more accurately.
Hmm. So Broadcom's tech, it's not just connecting us.
Right.
It's potentially saving lives,
Yeah.
and shaping the future of how we get around.
Exactly. And as AI gets, even more advanced, those applications are just they're gonna multiply. Think about personalized education,
Yeah.
Where you've got these AI tutors that customize, the lessons to how you learn best.
Hmm.
Or smart cities that can optimize traffic flow and energy consumption. I mean, Broadcom's work in AI infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's really laying the foundation for all that.
Yeah, that's a really powerful thought. I mean, they're not just a tech company. They're enabling progress in so many different areas.
Right, right. And for our listener, I think, it means understanding that the choices Broadcom makes, the technology that they develop. I mean, it has a ripple effect, that touches our lives in so many ways.
It's like they're this hidden hand,
Yeah.
that's guiding the evolution of technology. But as we've discussed, they're not without their critics. They have challenges.
Right, of course. I mean, some people argue that, their approach to acquisitions,
Yeah.
it could stifle competition,
Yeah.
lead to higher prices for consumers, and like we mentioned, the regulators, they're
Yeah.
they're always keeping an eye on them, especially with a company as big as Broadcom.
So it's important to be aware of those concerns.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be consider the potential downsides as well.
Absolutely. It's all about, having a balanced view. Broadcom, they're a major force. There's no doubt about that. But their impact,
Yeah.
and what their decisions mean, I mean, it's complicated. It's multifaceted.
It's like we said, right at the start, they're
Yeah.
they're a company to watch, not just for their stock price, but for the role that they play in shaping the whole world of tech.
Yeah, I think that's the key takeaway here. We looked at their financials, their strategies, their place in the AI world.
Mm.
But ultimately, it's about understanding that the tech they're developing has this huge impact on our lives.
Yeah.
For good and for bad.
It's a good reminder, that we should all be a little more aware of the companies behind the tech we use every day.
Yeah.
And think about the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the ethical, the social, the economic,
Mm.
the impact of their decisions.
Well said. Yeah. Yeah. It's not just about the cool new gadgets, right? It's about the forces that are driving all this innovation and what all this, what all these innovations mean for our world.
And on that note,
Mhm.
I think we've come to the end of our deep dive.
Mhm.
We've covered a lot, and I hope our listener, comes away with a better understanding of Broadcom, their influence, and the future that they're helping to create.
It's been a really interesting exploration, and like we always say, the learning never stops. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep.